Hello and welcome everybody to the episode of Strick and Roll. I'm your host, Shwin and YC. In this episode 72, I'm joined as always by my co-host YC. That is at YC on Twitter. YC, what's up? How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'd be doing better if the Pacers lost, but unfortunately, that did not occur. Not yet. Hopefully, SGA in Canada, they can get us on Sunday. Maybe he'll even throw an assist before committing 6 turnovers. That'd be good. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about a lot of things before we get started. I do have to make a few announcements. First, that Strickland has a YouTube channel where you may watch this podcast. If you haven't done so already, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. That'd be huge help to us. The Strickland also has merchandise, which you can find on our website at www.strick.land. There's a link that'll take you to the merchandise store, and there's all kinds of cool stuff on there, like t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it, we got it. The Strickland also has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland, the podcast that I host every Friday at the Prez. You also get access to Takes from Obvious Bozos, podcast hosted by Andrew Steele, aka Doug, along with Zach Blatter. And you get access to the Strickland Discord where the conversation never stops. There are further tiers. There's a $9 tier that gets you access to this pod, Strick and Roll, that I host now with YC, where we talk about the NBA and rant away with anything more. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Murner, one of the best in the business, and you get access to Strickland NFL, which you guessed is a podcast about the NFL that is hosted by Konstantin Metrikos and Desmond Novak. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, $100 tier. There's coming with a variety of additional benefits, like listening on a pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and potentially host a podcast alongside yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not. This will be possible that you. So without further ado, let's get started. NBA Finals, Pacers win, take the series to 7. 108-91. It really wasn't that competitive after like the first, quarter of the game. I don't know. I think OKC will still win. You never know because the Pacers are disgusting black magic merchants. But I don't know. I feel like I didn't want to tweet this because I'm just trying really hard to not discuss the series too much because if you only have if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Right.
But the one thing I could not get over this is is it okay if Tyrese Halliburton is just allowed to have a bad game? If he has a bad game, can you just have a bad game and it doesn't need to be oh my God, he went back to the locker room and his Achilles is about to fall off, but it's the NBA Finals, so he came back in and the 2.5 days of rest completely healed him. I just don't understand it. Every time he has a bad game, it's always got to be this conversation about what he hurt and he's not 100%. And oh my God, he limped up to the podium after the game, and it's yeah, man, it's the NBA Finals. It's late in the playoffs, whatever. Guys are hurt, and everybody has an excuse. And I don't know. I guess I just struggle with this because I always felt this way when Randall had his struggles in New York in the playoffs. My thing was look, I can appreciate that you're out there for your team. You're trying to gut it out through an injury, but if you're just playing like shit, then don't be out there. Just don't be out there. And so but with him, it's he gets to have every which way where it's if he plays badly, he's hurt, something's going on. Some mystery thing that we can't figure out. But then when he's healthy, or when he plays well, it's is this Steph Curry? And it's I just don't really understand that dichotomy. And I think it's honestly, I think it's kind of insulting to him where it's look, if you think he's this great of a player, and to be honest with you, I think it's hard to deny, at least for me, I think he's at least got to be firmly a top 10 guy at this point. If you think so highly of him, then stop making excuses when he plays poorly. You can just say, yeah, you know what? I think he is a great player, and great players have shitty games sometimes, and that's just how it is. But with him, and I really got to say, I feel like it's only with him that I've seen this phenomenon where it's plays well, everything is great, all the glory to him, what a player, fantastic, which is normal. When he plays poorly, though, it's nope, actually, you don't understand. His ankle is worse than ever. The mattresses that he sleeps on the road are secretly horrible for him and his back. And it's I don't know, I've never, it's the franchise quarterback thing where it's normally it's well, they get all the praise when shit is good. And then when you lose a game, it's all that guy's fault. And it's with him, it's you just get the good and none of the bad. And I just don't understand it because I feel he is a all-star. He's an all-NBA player. When you have those accolades, you should be held to a certain standard. And I don't think that he ever does. And I don't quite understand why.
I do think he gets some fair criticism about his lack of aggression or his or his apparent lack of aggression at times. Just like not shooting the ball, not getting enough shots up,
But
probing the defense.
it's from the worst people. This is why it doesn't work. It's like you get that from like Stephen A. or like Kendrick
Yeah.
Perkins, and immediately in my brain I'm like, I know anything that you're about to say right now is probably just dumb and not good at all.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying though, I would say it was a little bit conspiratorial, except for the fact that earlier this year, I think, when he went through that cold streak and he wasn't shooting like prime Steph, I don't know how many reports or tweets or whatever that I read about hotel room beds and how they're different and how they're not like perfect for his back and how it's going to be really good when he gets like a home stretch in Indiana and can sleep in his own bed. I had never heard the hotel bed thing before the Halliburton went on that cold streak earlier in the regular season. And I mean, it also just defies logic. I mean, I know the guy's a millionaire athlete, but the hotels they're staying in are pretty nice. They have nice beds. I mean, how bad could the bed be? And if this is a real problem, he can get a bed brought in or something. I don't know, but I never noticed it before, and I would have said that you're probably reaching a little bit, except for the hotel bed thing was a real story, which is not
It
something that should
was
ever have been a story.
well, that was like, and it was like it got picked up. I think like KOC was talking about it. I was just like, what are we doing here? And yeah, to that, like when I just see stuff like that, I'm like, I don't. It's I mean, even in Game 5, like, look, I get it. He like tweaks his ankle or whatever, and okay, he goes back to the locker room. Okay. But once you step back in between the lines, I'm like, I just have to judge you for being on the floor. Like, I get that you might not be 100%, but like, if you're making yourself available and you are playing, I can only give you so much leeway. Like, I don't think Jalen Brunson, for example, was 100% at the end of the season this year. But like, I'm not going to watch Game 6 of that Indiana series and be like, yeah, but his you don't get it. His ankle was like actually swelling up, and his his index finger on his shooting hand hurt. Like, no, you're just gonna be like, guy played like shit. He had a bad game in the biggest game of the year, and it happens. That sucks. But like, I just don't like that. I I don't like that kind of talk. But like, but it's a weird thing with him, and I just don't get it because I'm like, you can't like I'm watching Game 5. I'm like, he comes back in the game. Maybe he's not 100%. But I'm watching him move, and I'm like, I don't think your issue right now is you're hurt. I think your issue is you're not being aggressive or you're not imposing yourself on the game. Like, and I get people get frustrated. I do think there's like, I think the way that Stephen A. or like Kendrick talk about that stuff, where it's like, it's always just this like force of will thing that a guy has to do.
A mental thing.
Yeah, like I don't buy that, but I do think there's
Mhm.
something to like you can get lost in a game. Like you can feel like, oh, maybe I don't have like he didn't have it going in that game, right? So you can see
Right.
the possessions, and they highlighted one during the broadcast where I think he got the ball like top of the key. He was open, and then he like swung it to Pascal in the corner, and I think it was Richard Jefferson that was like, look, like you got to take that shot. Like you're Tyrese Halliburton, you are a great shooter. First of all, you're a great player. Your team kind of needs you to get into the game here. That's a shot you have to take. And that's where I'm like, to me, that's just a guy is I'm watching the game yesterday, and OKC was terrible in this game. I thought SGA, that might have been the worst game I've seen him play all season.
For sure.
Yeah, he was really bad. I thought Jalen Williams was sloppy. The numbers, if you just ignore the turnover column, you'd be like, oh, it doesn't look that bad. But and then you look at the turnover column and you're like, oh, that fucking sucked. But like what, and we were talking about that in our Discord, and there were people like they look tired, and I'm like, I don't think they look tired. I like the reason when they're like they look slow, they look tired. I'm like, it to me, they look like they're second guessing themselves. They look confused, and when you're
Hesitant.
confused, exactly. When you're confused and you're second guessing yourself, you're a step slow because you're hesitating. You're like, oh wait, what? Where's the help coming from? Where's my open pass? Where's my read? You're not playing instinctively. You're not seeing things happen at the pace you need to see them happen at. And that's kind of what I felt like watching Halliburton in Game 5, where I'm like, okay, like I don't I did not watch him and think he came back in the game. Again, maybe he's not 100%, but I'm like, yeah, no. I mean, there were times where he's able to turn the corner and he's able to get a step, and he's just not taking that opportunity. And we've seen him do that before. And I just think it's fucking lame to constantly, like, when you see that happen with a guy where he has form for that, that's something that's happened with him before, to chalk it up to he's probably not 100%, because it's like none of these guys are 100%, man. Like, none of these guys right now. It's a long season. They got one more game left on Sunday, June 22nd. They've been playing since what, before Halloween? Like,
yeah, they're about to play the max number. Yeah,
right, yeah, like, and so of course they're not 100%, and like, that's just the grind of an NBA season. So I don't know. And it sucks because it almost like that becomes this narrative of each game where it's like Halliburton's hurt. Oh my God, Halliburton is overcoming the injury. And meanwhile, you're just watching the game and you're like, Pascal Siakam's kicking their ass. And like, holy shit, CJ McConnell is on, he has the good cocaine. I mean, because I'm watching, I thought Pascal yesterday, and honestly, I felt this way watching them through the playoffs. This is no knock on Halliburton or really anybody on the team, but like, I think when they're going good, and even more, maybe more so when they're like struggling, when they can't quite get themselves, like when they're not playing peak Pacers ball and they just need somebody to kind of give them some buckets and get them a foothold in the game. I always feel like it's Pascal. I feel like it's always him that finds a way to get them some buckets, get them some a foundation to kind of build their platform off of. And then, obviously McConnell is his own thing, but I just think Siakam, like, look, if they win this series on Sunday, one, I will kill myself. Two, like, I think Siakam should be the Finals MVP. Like, I thought it was kind of strange when people were knocking. It's like, oh, how could they not give Halliburton the Eastern Conference Finals MVP? And I get it. Like, he had a couple of great games. Pascal is there every night. Every night, Pascal is there. And I don't think you can say that about Halliburton. That does not mean Halliburton's not a great player, but I think when you're just boiling down value to like these set of games, we're not talking about who's the best player over the course of the season. When you're just talking about these 7 games, this one series, I mean, if Indiana wins this series, I just think it has to be Pascal. He's been tremendous, and he's been tremendous on both ends. Some of his defensive possessions yesterday on SGA were like just special.
I do think Halliburton obviously is a great player, but it feels like in terms of this playoffs and the way he plays and the way he defers to others and, manages the offense, part of what he's good at when they need a bucket is attacking defenses when they're tilted, when they're, in rotation. He's can finish plays when he's like the last pass of several when they're whipping the ball around and he can attack those tilted defenses. And, obviously he's a great catch and shoot player, that sort of thing. But to your point, yeah, it seems like when they are not able to put the defenses in that scramble or in that rotation and their, first and second options aren't working, they can kind of throw it to Pascal and just give him the ball and he can get a bucket for them. I just feel like he's been consistent all through the playoffs. I was never a big Pascal Siakam guy, but this playoffs, he's been incredible in a way that he can score from anywhere. He just does. He's a lot more complete an offensive player than I've ever given credit for. And I don't know if that's like a recent development or it was just me overlooking him all these years, but he can really score in every sort of way. And he's been there consistently as like the guy, your go-to scorer. He's the guy who's going to finish plays. He's the guy who, if you can't tilt the defense and get a play finisher or a good pass into him, you can just give him the ball on the block and he'll figure something out. He'll draw a foul. He'll get a jumper off. He'll hit a timely 3-pointer. Yeah, I think he's been their best player in the playoffs, and I do think that it'd be nice if he won MVP if they end up winning. But he's been incredible. Like, I think my perception of Siakam is like changed pretty much forever after this playoff run.
Yeah, I mean, I think the craziest thing, and now that are you good on praising the Pacers? Are we good on that?
Yeah, I'm good. I was gonna do some more, but I'll let it go.
Yeah, look, I guess the last thing I'll say, TJ McConnell. I remember last year because I think he didn't have a contract. He was expiring contract last year, and I remember like several times during the season, I'm just always like, he's the kind of guy you hate, but you're also like, God, he's such a fucking motherfucker. If he was on my team, I'd love that guy. I remember I tweeted out during like our series or whatever. I was like, I would love if we could get Pascal or not Pascal, TJ McConnell this summer, and there are people like, why would you want him? He's so tiny. And I'm like, are you like watching what this guy does for 20 minutes a night? It's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But no, I did think it's like, I'm just looking at kind of, we I was thinking about this the other day, but like, we got OG from the Raptors, and look, I love Emmanuel quickly. I'll always have like a soft spot in my heart for RJ Barrett, but like within basically the first game after that trade, when I watched OG, I was just like, yeah, this is great. Like that's awesome. Good for us.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. So we got him. We got OG for quickly and RJ. They had to pay quickly right away. He got a nice contract. Good for him. 5 years. I think it's 162.5 guaranteed, up to 175. But then they trade Siakam, and this is the trade. So they gave up Siakam, obviously. They get back Bruce Brown, Jordan and Nwora, and they gave up. They got 2 first-round picks going to the Raptors, both in 2024, and then Indiana's pick is also went to the Raptors in 2026, which was then sent to the Pelicans in some convoluted trade. That like I was like thinking about this, just watching Siakam in our series, watching him last night, because it's crazy. Like I think he's even leveled up. Not even that, he has leveled up from that point. Like he's been
100%.
ridiculous the last year and a half, and I'm just thinking, I'm like, you talk about teams that win championships, get to contending levels, whatever. Usually there's some move along the way where it's like they get crazy value on something. And, you look at the Pacers, there are a couple, like the Halliburton one is obvious, right? It's like you got Halliburton basically straight up for Domantas Sabonis. And that's amazing. But like, I think the Siakam one is even more ridiculous because at least Sabonis is an all-star in some capacity. They gave up 2 late firsts in a shitty draft last year, which was acknowledged as shitty. Bruce Brown, who literally is nothing now, like was a human trade exception. Jordan and Nwora, who is Jordan
might not be in
Nwora.
the league,
Yeah, is Jordan and Nwora. And then
no disrespect.
Yeah, and then they traded out the 2026 pick that they owned, but they just got that back because they traded.
Back.
Yeah, they just got it back, but in that trade they made it during the finals. So like, I'm just looking at that trade and I'm like, I don't know that like I can't believe how good of a trade that was for them. And like obviously me and you both are obviously going to follow like Knicks. We all every time Obi Toppin makes a 3, I've got to see how can we do this trade? And I'm like, I don't know. Did you like Dante DiVincenzo? Because we wouldn't have Dante DiVincenzo if we didn't trade Obi Toppin. But either way, like that's a hit for them. They got Neesmith in the Brogdon trade as just a throw in. That's a hit for them. Like they have been on a heater. But you look at that Siakam trade and like, I mean, that's the type of trade that I don't want to go too crazy with it, but like it's the type of trade that can define your team. And also, I think in some ways, like it's the type of trade that shifts or it can shift and tilt the balance of power in a conference because, you look at the East over the next, 2, 3, 4 years. I think the Knicks will be there. I know that that's controversial to many Knicks fans. I think the Knicks will be there. I'm not as high in Orlando, but I can kind of see the vision if Paolo is better than I think. I think, Boston, maybe they can really tool, but Indiana's going to be there and they wouldn't be in that category if not for that trade. And I just think it's crazy the value they got on it.
When you make all those deals in quick succession and they're all on the same timeline too, it's a killer for everybody else because it's not just good moves, it's all in that compressed time period. And now they have a crazy core with a lot of pieces. They just got back their pick, which is just opening them up to be able to trade for more after this finals is over. It's pretty crazy. I mean, I couldn't even name their GM before. I mean, I know Kevin Pritchard runs the team. Their GM's Chad Buchanan or something. I'd never heard that name before. I'm just my ignorance, my bad. Was not familiar with his game, whatever his contribution to these deals were. But yeah, I feel like just watching them in the playoffs, obviously watching them beat the Knicks, it's just such a complete team up and down the roster. And even watching them last night, it feels like they have an endless amount of like switchable, annoying guards that they can just throw at this team. It's like a really good matchup for Oklahoma City, which when I going into this finals, I expected that the Pacers offense might be a good matchup to potentially it might be the best offense that OKC has seen all year, especially at the rate they were going at the level they were playing in the playoffs. I thought that that was the thing to watch out for. And what it turns out is they just have like an endless number of guards to just switch on to all of OKC's perimeter players and to like defend in a lot of different ways. I saw this thread that this film guy, I think his name is Michael Jagaki. Apologies if I didn't get that pronunciation right. Um, and he talked about what they adjusted from game five. And it really was obviously when you watch film and someone's basically leading you through it, it's a little bit persuasive and maybe overly so to some extent. But what he talked about was they weren't switching on defense as high up the court on those pick and rolls, and they were kind of sinking back and packing the paint. And it really did bear out in how they played in terms of, there's always four guys at every corner of the paint. All those passing lanes were clogged up. They forced a lot of turnovers. They basically just weren't giving up passing lanes, and they weren't giving Shea the runway off that screen to just like run at the gaps. And I think part of why they're able to do that is they have like a bunch of interchangeable guys who are kind of the same guy to throw at them. They've like throw Nembhard out there, throw Shepard out there, throw TJ McConnell to some extent. Halliburton's been better on defense. They just have so many. Neesmith, of course, not to forget that guy. They have like 5 or 6 pretty good rotation guards. It feels like that they could just endlessly throw out there and use up fouls and everything. They can use them in a number of ways just to soak up minutes, which is a whole other issue. But yeah, it's just incredible what they've been able to do in terms of like assembling that roster with a bunch of guys that you wouldn't look at twice, and then you see how they're deployed in this series, and it all makes sense. Like I'm wondering if they might have had even more trouble with a different team than OKC, but it feels like they are perfectly suited to play OKC, and now we have a 7-game series, obviously, so it kind of bared out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth noting like the game one fucking collapse OKC has is like part of it. It's like Indiana's had a bunch of these, but
when
it's like,
has that happened before?
right? But part of it is also like when you get that stroke of luck, like it's only as lucky as you make it. So like you have to
capitalize on it. Yeah.
And they've done that in all of these series. They did it, and I mean they've done it. I think the fact that they even have this series 7 is a testament to them. The one thing I will say about them is, I think that they are. I'm trying to be very careful with this. I think you can debate who is the best coach in the league. There's all kinds of names you can throw out there, Spo,
Sure.
Kerr, whatever. But this year, and like all I can say from the teams I've watched in the playoffs, obviously the Knicks, the Celtics, OKC, Denver, whatever, name the teams out. This is the best coach team I have watched. I think their offense, the way they operate, like Boston is kind of imposing in their own way when they're fully right, because they play 5 out, everybody can shoot, they have good size, they can switch well defensively, blah blah blah.
Overwhelming talent, yeah.
Yeah. So like there's that, but we saw it when we played them, when the Knicks actually executed their switches and were disciplined in that sense. I didn't think Boston was creating much successfully. Like and they kind of got bogged down into mismatch hunting, and it's like, oh, I
didn't have a counter.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, but we have Brunson. I have Brunson on me, so I actually everybody like just kind of space out. I'm going to take Brunson here or Cat or whatever, and they got sucked into that. And I think what's kind of unique with Indiana, because they're not unique in that they have 5 out spacing. I mean, like I said, Boston has it. OKC has 5 out spacing. We know the Knicks, in theory, should have 5 out spacing looks.
Mm-hmm.
Most teams have a look like that, at least, if not their main look. But what's really unique about them is it's not just that they have the 5 out spacing, but they have this constant movement, ball movement, player movement, and they're zipping around. And that's one thing where it's like, I think anybody could have looked at their team and pretty early on, even like last season, been like, oh yeah, no, this team is going to score points, and they're just going to score points on everybody. And that's kind of why I felt going into our series against them. Like people were talking about the defense, and people are still talking about the defense, and I'm like, you're not stopping them. You got to score points. If you're not going to score, if you cannot score points, you're going to lose the series against them more times than not. So them scoring to me on anybody, even as good as OKC is, not that surprising to me. But what I think is surprising is that, like, yes, they still have their games and moments where they give up a $125 or $130 or whatever. But I think they make you work defensively in a way that if you just look at their roster and look at who is getting XYZ minutes, you would not see it. And the game plan they executed yesterday against OKC, I mean, that was like carbon copy of what they did to the Knicks in Game 6, where it's like, well, you know, what you talked about, where, yeah, we're actually not going to press up as much. We're going to let you come to us, and we don't think, one, that you have the pull-up shooters that want to take those shots that you might be able to get, and we know you want to get into the paint, and we're going to sell out. And I remember watching that Game 6, and it was so frustrating because I was just like, stop driving into the paint. Stop driving into the paint. Or, like, if you, like, not even stop driving into the paint, but if you drive, understand where their help is coming from. Like, figure it out. And I mean, look, it's easy for me sitting on my couch with a beer to be like, oh, figure it out, man. But, like, obviously on the floor, it's harder. I do suspect OKC will be much better prepared for that type of game plan in Game 7. But the fact that they're able to execute stuff like that, and they just throw so much at you, and I just think it's like, it's kind of incredible. And then there's just like small things where it's like, you know, their backup 5 situation isn't good right now. So in a lot of ways, Carlisle is kind of like, all right, I'll use Tony Bradley to buy me like 3 minutes in each half, and then I'll buy Pascal and OB together.
Yeah,
to buy me another like 3 or 4 minutes. And it's like, it's those small little, like, just, hey, is this the ideal thing that I want? No, but how do I buy myself minutes? What's my best way to do that? And I think that
mitigate,
and that best and that willingness, especially for an older coach like Carlisle, who has that reputation a bit as like a curmudgeon or whatever. I think his willingness to just keep tinkering and work at those small things and finding different solutions and changing things up game to game. I think right now, I can't speak to what you think of, like, you know, what coach is the best at the best of their abilities. But right now, this season, this year, I think Carlisle has proven to be the best coach in these playoffs for sure. I think tactically he's just been a step ahead. And yeah, I mean, the fact that he's getting as much out of this team, again, not a knock on the talent really as much as praising the coach here, but the fact that he's getting so much out of them on offensively for you know, I don't know that that's, I think they have talent there, but what he's getting out of them defensively, I think, given, as good as Neesmith is, as good as Nembhard is, or whatever, and Turner, but like, they have weak points, and yet they're right there, and they've made things difficult for OKC. I mean, even in Game 5, I thought it wasn't easy for OKC. They had to struggle at times. So they've been really good, and it's unfortunate. It's disgusting and unfortunate to have to say that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I do think, to your point, and I'll keep it brief because we don't want to, glaze Indiana all podcast long. But I do think that it is coaching in the sense that it's harder than we probably appreciate for players and for coaches too, but for players to be lineup agnostic, to be able to play with different teammates in different combinations all through game in playoffs at the highest stakes in the finals. And it's difficult to play different coverages on defense, I'm sure, as well. To be able to be flexible and to understand what your assignment is depending on what your game plan is. And I think all of that, being able to push all those buttons that Rick Carlisle does, is because his players are able to execute all that. And part of that is them being flexible and understanding what's going on and knowing their roles in different situations. And part of that is probably experimentation they've been doing all through the regular season and partly in the playoffs that we didn't even notice, that went kind of unnoticed in Game 10 of the regular season or whatever it was. So yeah, man, it's pretty wild. It's also wild that he's the oldest coach in the NBA Finals history, I think I read, which
Really?
seems strange. I believe they said Larry Brown was younger when he took over the Pistons from him, which I don't remember a time when Larry Brown wasn't 100 years old. So